What is going on, everyone? This is the Fantasy Aces podcast. I am your host, Joe Bevlakman. With me, we got Mike Hendel, Nathan Holleran, and Sonny Chowdhury. Guys, it's a big time of the year. We got free agency. My phone's going off the charts right now with, updates. We also got March Madness coming right now, and everyone's filling out their brackets. It's a crazy time of the year. But today is all about free agents, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Lots of news around the league, lots of signings, and we're going to split it up with free agents that have signed or supposedly have signed, and free agents that are still unsigned that we can talk about. But before we get to any of that, I want you guys to hear the blockbuster trade that I made in my Dynasty Owner League. So this league deals with contracts, and Darren Waller was just a hefty contract for us, and we would be over the cap, and we would have to cut someone. So we traded Darren Waller, and we got Irv Smith Jr., a first-round pick for this year, David Njoku, Traquan Smith on the Saints, and a future second-round pick in 2023. So I thought we got a lot for him, and we really couldn't fit him into our contract space anyway. So I thought we did pretty good on that trade. I was sad to see him go, but I'm like, you know what, Irv Smith Jr., he might do really well this year being the starting tight end for the Vikings. So I thought I'd go with it. And also another question I have for you guys is, do you think in Dynasty, is it the perfect time to trade Derrick Henry? In Dynasty, is it the perfect time? And I'm going to start with Sonny first. Do you think it's the perfect time? Oh, yeah, Mike, go first.
No, I was just going to say Irv Smith plus Njoku and plus Traquan Smith, all three added up will not do what Darren Waller is going to do. I know about the contract, and you did get a great deal, but I'm just saying that right now.
Oh, yeah, no,
all those three guys combined are not going to do what Waller's going to do.
Oh, no, I totally agree with that. But we did need that first-round pick, and that would probably get us a good fantasy running back this year in the draft. So now we have two first-round picks going into the draft.
It's a good trade. It's a good trade.
It was a heavy loss because we know Darren Waller, and also we do not have a backup tight end whatsoever. It's just blank in our roster, so we have to pull this trade out. But starting off with Sonny, do you think it's the perfect time to trade Derrick Henry coming into the offseason, for a dynasty league?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the prime time to get rid of Derrick Henry because right now, everyone is still optimistic about Derrick Henry coming off a 2K rushing yard season, led the league 2 years in a row. And now, even though they did lose Arthur Smith, I am confident that he has at least one more year of being a top-end running back. And the only way I would say not trade Derrick Henry is if this is your championship window, you have a championship caliber team, and you think you got a shot to win it all, then keep Derrick Henry. But if you want to think long-term, I don't think his value is going to be any higher than it is right now. And I think, again, just the perfect time to just get rid of him. And it's better to be a year early than too late. So, yeah, I would full-on support selling him now.
All right, yeah, it's just a big question I've been seeing, hanging around right now. Nate, I see you shaking your head. Do you agree that Derrick Henry might, he's not going to have the season he had last year? That's hard to do. So, would you agree with, what Sonny's saying?
Yeah, no, I think you put it in the best perspective you can possible. He's getting older, and they lost Arthur Smith, and we all believe, most of us do, that he was a huge impact on that team. Leaving could really hurt them, but I agree. Thinking long term, Derrick Henry is a great running back, but for a long term consensus kind of deal, you're gonna want to trade him, kind of look for something a little better, especially like Sonny said, again, long term. Now, if you're a championship team, of course, yes. Keep him one more year. I think he's got at least 2 or 3 more years left until he really starts to dip. But yeah, if you're definitely looking for a long-term thing, absolutely, I think it's the right decision to do.
Yeah, and Mike, would you agree with that? Right now, his value is very high. Would you consider trading Derrick Henry in Dynasty if you had him?
Oh, I would definitely consider it. I guess it depends on what you get. You're not going to give him away for peanuts. And then if you can. Like if week 1 or 2 comes around and he blows up, like say you don't get enough and then week 1 or 2 he blows up, then absolutely pull the trigger on it and hopefully that price goes up a little more. So maybe wait until he has a good week 1.
I was going to say, even with free agency lining up, you got rid of Corey Davis, got rid of Johnny Smith. So you can really sweeten the pot right now. It's like, what else are they going to do? It's A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry. That's all they got. And if you, again, like Mike said, right price, nothing short of a first round. That's the bare minimum if you're getting a pick. First round and plus more. So, yeah, again, right price. Again, anyone's on the block.
Definitely, definitely plus more when it comes to Derrick Henry. All right, so getting to news around the league. This is probably the most news we'll ever get when it comes to news around the league. But starting it off, and I know you guys are going to want to talk about this, but we're just going to talk Patriots. What they did yesterday and today. First of all, Cam Newton, 1 year, 13.6 mil. Nelson Aguilar, 2 years, 26 mil. Kendrick Bourne, 3 years, 22.5 mil. Then you got Jonnu Smith on a 50 mil 4-year contract. Matthew Judon, Jalen Mills from the Eagles. And then you have Hunter Henry. So you have both tight ends, and they just, wow, they just really went for it. I'm going to start off with Mike first. Do you like what they did in free agency, or you just thought they went completely the wrong way?
I mean, I have no idea. I don't know if Cam Newton's good anymore. I mean, if you put all that time, I mean, they were a garbage team last year around him. So I guess if you put better pieces with them, they'll be good. It's interesting. You have two, number one-ish tight ends, and then my boy Nelson Aguilar. I don't know. I don't know what to think. It'll be interesting, and I'd love to see their games, and it'll be way more interesting than they were last year.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. It's just Cam Newton, when it comes to his completion rate, it's pretty low. So I'm trying to think here, bringing in Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, if it's actually going to help. Nate, how do you feel about the Patriots, all their signings, taking Jalen Mills away from you, that press corner? How do you feel about it?
It's not press. It's burnt on every double move that happens. There's no press. No, I mean, it's good for them too. They got to help out Cam Newton. They're doing the right decision by doing so, signing the wide receivers that they need, and then, of course, helping out on defense a little bit. It's not the first Eagle to leave to go to the Patriots. We had Eric Rowe a couple of years ago that went to the Patriots and won a championship with them. So, and now Nelson Aguilar. So we'll see. I mean, we don't know. Maybe Bill Belichick, will crack a couple jokes to him about what he did in Philly, and I don't know. We'll see. But the Patriots are moving in the right direction. I mean, they signed Judon. That was a great deal. They're treading in calmer waters than what they did before when Cam really had nobody to say on that team. So, I mean, I like what they're doing as far as free agent signing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely adding more pieces to their defense. A lot of those guys sat out during COVID, so that defense is definitely revamped. Sonny, how do you feel about the Patriots additions?
Yeah, I mean, purely from a football perspective, they definitely improved. I mean, just adding all the weapons. But, I mean, from a fantasy perspective, it's just a mess everywhere. I mean, I like the Jonnu Smith at first. I was like, top 12 tight end Jonnu Smith. But then you had Hunter Henry. Now we don't even know who the number one option is. Do you even have an accurate quarterback that can even throw the ball? But, I mean, then you also got to think about the old Patriots when they had, Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski when they were both fantasy monsters. But again, that was Tom Brady, in his prime throwing on the ball. So, I'm pretty low on both the tight ends. Aguilar, I did really like. I loved what he did last year. But again, it's Cam Newton throwing the ball. I don't know what more he has left. So, from fantasy, I'm probably avoiding almost all of the Patriots options. But, I mean, if you're a Pats fan, congrats, I guess, because you can't really get much worse than last year. So,
yeah. I was gonna get to those questions for the Patriots offense, but yeah, it's a wait and see right now. But going towards other teams, Corey Davis on the Jets, Carl Lawson on the Jets. Chiefs got Joe Thuney, I believe his last name is. And they cut 2 offensive linemen that they had just to get him in action. Ngakwe's on the Raiders, Ryan Fitzpatrick on Washington, Marvin Jones to the Jags, Andy Dalton to the Bears, John Ross to the Giants. Great sign by the Giants, in my opinion. And Malcolm Brown recently just signed to the Dolphins. So those, I know there's many, many more. Yeah, Nate.
I mean, Emmanuel Sanders just went to the Bills, too.
Did he really? Did that
just happen? Emmanuel Sanders went to the Bills, and Patrick Peterson just re-signed.
To the Cardinals.
To the Cardinals, yes, he did.
Well, there you go.
Remember Marquise Goodwin, the so-called Eagles' next wide receiver to help him? He went back to the 49ers.
All right.
So
interesting. Emmanuel Sanders on the Bills. That really hurts Corey Davis's. I still think Corey Davis is going to be above him when it comes to the depth chart, but
Gabriel Davis.
Gabriel Davis.
I just saw the Texans. They signed Mark Ingram. That's a thing.
Yeah, that happened a couple days ago.
And Tyrod Taylor. They also got Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
Potential starter. We'll see.
There's many more signings I didn't list, but I just thought I list, the big ones. And I know there's some that I missed, but there's just too many notifications popping up right now. So going into our first topic, free agents that have signed. We're talking about the Patriots and Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. At first, like Sonny said, I was, pretty excited at least with Jonnu Smith, but then Hunter Henry came in. I mean, both of these tight ends, it's just for fantasy, it's not looking real good, and that's kind of where I sit with those two guys, and I perfectly agree with that. But starting off with Sonny, is there any free agents that have, supposedly signed so far that you want to talk fantasy-wise right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think Terry McLaurin was a huge winner getting Ryan Fitzpatrick. Because we didn't even know his quarterback was going to be, but what we do know from Ryan Fitzpatrick, he loves airing the ball out. He loves throwing his receivers, and he's always had a fantasy relevant receiver. I mean, you think about the Buccaneers a few years ago, Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin were all fantasy relevant. You look back, last in 2019 when Devontae Parker had his monster breakout year. And again, he was still fantasy viable. So I think Terry McLaurin finally the quarterback that's going to constantly throw to him, and he's going to let him, get shots in the end zone. So I'm really high on Terry McLaurin. I think he might have been one of the biggest winners because of the Ryan Fitzpatrick signing.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I trusted more in Miami when Ryan Fitzpatrick was the quarterback more than Tua, and that connection really worked well. So I definitely agree with that. I have a question for all of you. Is James Robinson's fantasy value hurt by having Carlos Hyde now on the Jags? Nate, you're shaking your head. Nope. Why don't you go first? No, don't see it at all.
Absolutely not. No, this guy. I mean, there's no way Carlos Hyde will affect this stud. I mean, he might get shared volume playing time in some consensus of of how they play the ball. However, Urban Meyer wants to run the ball, but James Robinson has such a open window for him of how great he can be, and I just don't see Carlos Hyde really getting in the way, at least that much, to where his fantasy ranking drops significantly.
Mike, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to envision a scenario where, like, James Robinson's still so young. There's still a lot of tread left on the tire, so to speak. I just don't see why, if he's healthy and he's good in every game, he's getting the ball. Carlos Hyde is a really nice insurance package, I guess.
Yeah. We still don't know, what Urban Meyer has planned for Carlos Hyde, if it's a passing or, helping in the red zone. So can't be too sure yet. Mike, is there any free agents that signed that you really want to talk about right now for fantasy?
Yeah, Raiders defense, Yannick Ngakoue. Let's go.
Yeah, no, that is a huge plus. That definitely is a huge plus.
Yeah, I was going to say, going back one more thing. I was actually going to go on the other side. I do actually believe that James Robinson did take a huge blow. Yeah. And I was going to say, going back, okay, first of all, I think Carlos Hyde is a very solid, underrated running back. I mean, even this year you saw in spurts, whenever he came in for Chris Carson, he always looked explosive. Going back a year before, he had over 1,000 yards as the Texans lead back. But the main reason is, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but he actually played under Urban Meyer at Ohio State. So I think they have a strong connection. And I don't think Urban Meyer would bring him in, if he didn't have a role in mind for him. And Carlos Hyde actually isn't, a strong receiving back or anything. So I think he's going to take away a lot of touchdown equity from James Robinson. And I do see a 1-2 punch. And I actually did move James Robinson down significantly in my running back rankings. Just the guy at the top of my head, I have Joe Mixon above James Robinson now. I have DeAndre Swift above him, J.K. Dobbins. So for me, he took a blow, and that's mainly because, as an Ohio State Buckeyes fan, I do think Carlos Hyde is talented, and I think they have a role in mind for him. So for me, he may take a blow.
Yeah, no, I do agree that, Carlos Hyde actually might get more involved in this offense. The only thing is hopefully Urban Myers improves the offense when it comes to the running game, because James Robinson was still behind a really bad offensive line when it came to rushing the ball. So if they improve that, he could stand where he is, and Carlos Hyde can also improve to that fantasy-wise. But, a lot of things have to be done. Urban Meyer, he got Shaquille Griffin and Trey Herdenstein, I believe. So their defense is, he's doing a good job so far in these 2 days. But my next question, though, I have is Corey Davis on the Jets, and I have to ask all of you this. Do you see more of a fantasy ceiling for him on the Jets, or did you see it more on the Titans with him? We're going to start off with Mike first.
Yeah, that's a tough one because who's going to be the quarterback on the Jets?
That's a tough one. But also, he's got so much. He's got a lot of opportunity on the Jets right now because he's going to be up there as being the starting guy and the wide receiver one.
Yeah, but they're not going to have as much of a running threat as with Derrick Henry, and the safeties aren't going to be like, well, I got to stay near Derrick Henry now. So I don't know. Maybe it'll be about the same. I don't know. I don't
see same fantasy ceiling.
Yeah, unless they get some crazy new upgraded quarterback from one of those two guys where it's all murky in Seattle and in Houston. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, he's a draftable player for sure.
All right. Sonny, do you think he has got a higher ceiling?
Yeah, I mean, not by much, but I do give him a boost just because I think he has the potential to be the number one option of this offense. And, I mean, yeah, like you said, he's going from one of the least heaviest passing teams to one that should be passing a lot more, mainly because, I mean, I don't expect that defense to be anything special, and they're a team that should be trailing. So I think, he has a chance to be the number one receiver in that offense. And, it might not be that high of a ceiling, but I think the opportunity should give him a boost.
Yeah, I was going to say he's experienced enough to when it comes to trash points that this guy, could end up being a really good fantasy wide receiver when it comes, to trash points. So I do actually personally see his ceiling being higher, especially being the wide receiver one. Nate, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think he's a really good wide receiver. Don't get me wrong. 984 yards on the least pass, offense, like Sonny was saying, now that he's going to go to the Jets and everything, but, as Mike said as well, we don't know who the really quarterback's going to be. Is it going to be Sam Darnold? Is it going to be somebody they draft? I don't know. But I also tend to agree with him being number one wide receiver on that team. So it gives him a lot of opportunity. He's pretty inconsistent, though, when it comes to certain things. And I'm not a huge fan of it. But I definitely – I don't know. I think his fantasy ceiling definitely could rise a little bit because of that number one option. Any other reason, I don't see it. But I think the quarterback position has a lot to do with it, too. So I guess we'll have to see what happens with that.
Yeah. And going from one wide receiver to another, Marvin Jones now, he's going to be on the Jags. We could talk about him too, but also DJ Chark. I'm very worried about his fantasy value now with Marvin Jones on the Jags. We're going to start off with Sonny first. Where do you see his value now for, all three wide receivers in general with Marvin Jones?
Yeah, I mean, I was already down on DJ Chark, as I said before, and as soon as I saw the Marvin Jones news, I mean, DJ Chark was the biggest loser in my opinion from a fantasy perspective, just because I mean they're both, they're both deep threats, and then it's like you can't really rely on either or. Maybe it could fluctuate each week, and that's why Laviska Shenault would be my favorite of the bunch because he brings like the most unique asset on the team that the others can't do. He has the rushing floor and the short to intermediate route. So I mean, I like Laviska Shenault, and I'm probably going to avoid Chark and Marvin Jones depending on what their ADP is. But, I mean, hey, good for Trevor Lawrence, more weapons for him.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like I said, Urban Meyer's doing a great job, adding the strengths to that offense and acquiring people. But I agree, DJ Chark was probably the biggest loser today. Nate, how do you feel about that news? And where do you see DJ Chark at?
Yeah, I don't see much of a difference. I think Marvin Jones, just another distraction, for defenders to look at. Like you said, Laviska Shenault is just amazing. The way he can play the ball, the way he plays football. He's a great player. I just can't see Marvin Jones being a crazy impact like DJ Chark, or not DJ Chark, like Laviska Shenault and DJ Chark. It does add weapons, though. Don't get me wrong, and it helps Trevor. Absolutely, it does. The same thing with them is the inconsistency with a lot of things. So I'd probably say it's nothing too crazy to get over.
Sometimes I question why he signed with the Jags. I know because of more money, but he would have been the guy on the Lions, and now he's on the Jags, and this is probably like a third option wide receiver for him. So I mean, I
you
know
gotta
more
remember his
money.
offensive coordinator, Darren Bevel, is the new offensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm sure that
Okay.
has something to do with it, him bringing him back.
Yeah, from a fantasy perspective, though, like I would have took him on the Lions more and had him, at a late round ADP. It would have been a steal in the draft. But now I just kind of don't want to even look at, where he is in the draft. So just a little difference for me, him being on the Jags. Mike, how do you feel about Marvin Jones, DJ Chark, all those guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to predict. You got new coach, new quarterback. There's the familiarity, like Sonny said, I think, with the offensive coordinator. I don't know, man. It like anything could happen based on who Trevor Lawrence eats lunch with every day. Like you don't know.
That's true.
Like new bonds and friendships are being formed. Urban Meyer might take a liking to one of them after they get it. Like you don't know. So it's a mess. Just like the Patriots, it's going to be kind of a mess, and you can't really predict it accurately, I guess.
Yeah, and that's something we don't want to see as fantasy owners right now because we're like, what guy are we going to pick now on the Jags with, Marvin Jones joining when he could have been the only guy on the Lions besides Amendola. So it's definitely a difficult situation. Going to Nate, were there any free agents that signed that you really want to talk about when it comes to fantasy perspective?
Probably Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry.
Okay.
I think them going to the Patriots can be like a huge impact for them in general, especially in the tight end category, because there's going to be some people that really like Hunter Henry, but then they have to worry about Jonnu Smith. And then there's some people that really like Jonnu Smith that might have to worry about Hunter Henry. But then you have to realize that you have Cam Newton at quarterback. So what is going to happen? Probably it's going to be Jonnu Smith because I was suspecting him to go somewhere. I was not expecting the Patriots to get Jonnu Smith or Johnny Smith to go to New England. I really was not. Even Hunter Henry, like that blew my mind. I think the most interesting for me was I'm going to keep out is how the Patriots play this tight end game because in an interview, even Bill Belichick admitted that the Patriots are just not good at drafting tight ends, and you saw that when they went up in the draft and they drafted tight ends and they just never played because they weren't even that good. So I think that's really a thing to keep out an eye look out for during fantasy is the tight end category for that.
Yeah, we're doing our tight end rankings. I'm pretty sure Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith made our rankings for the top 12, but now if they're on the same team, you got to look at, target volume, and it's just not going to happen, especially on a offense that was completely boring last year. A lot of things have to improve. So, no, that's a very good point. I do think Jonnu Smith will be doing better, like you said. So I would have to agree with that. So going into it also, after that news you told about Emmanuel Sanders, Gabriel Davis is a huge loser if he ends up being on the bottom of the depth chart. I think he's going to have more talent. He's younger, he's more explosive, and I would really hate it for him to be on the bottom of that depth chart, with Sanders and Diggs above. I know Diggs has to be above him. He's exceptional, but I really wanted Gabriel Davis to take off this year, and I really hope that doesn't put in the way of that. So he can also be a loser. So, DJ Chark, Gabriel Davis, we got a couple wide receiver losers today. A lot of running backs haven't signed today, so we don't know yet what's going to happen there. Yeah, Mike.
Biggest loser is Michael Thomas because Drew Brees is gone. I don't think he's going to do nearly
that's a good point.
whatever he did before when you've got those two guys there. I mean, removing Drew Brees from any offense would make everyone do less, but especially given what he's working with now.
Mm-hmm. I definitely would have to agree with that. If people have Taysom Hill on Dynasty right now, what are you guys doing with him?
You get rid of him. You get rid of Taysom Hill because I'm sorry he's not a real quarterback, and Jameis Winston will be the starting quarterback. But I do think Sean Payton's gonna try and get cute and play both of them from time to time. So I think they both could be pretty annoying for fantasy on that.
They signed him to a huge contract too.
Yeah,
insane.
All numbers.
God,
they're just trying to they're trying to push that cap, just to avoid his contract. But yeah.
And I would have to say, another big winner is AJ Brown because he's just going to get more target share and more target volume. I thought Corey Davis took that away for him in the play action pass, so AJ Brown, another big boost. Just have him go to another team.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about the biggest loser? How about AJ Dillon? Now that Aaron Jones.
Yeah, that's also a big loser.
Huge. I was not expecting Green Bay to do that. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to try to help out the offensive line.
Isn't Jamal Williams is gone?
He's a free agent. Right? Yeah, he's a free agent.
So Dillon slides up one more step. He'll do more than he did last year.
I mean, the way I see it, yeah. So AJ Dillon, we know, isn't a receiving back, and Jamal Williams was. So the way I looked at it, Aaron Jones going to get more receiving work, but he might not get all the goal line opportunities that AJ Dillon might get. So it might just balance itself out. So PPR format, good for Aaron Jones getting receptions. Now that he'll be the only receiving back, but you got Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon on the goal line. Who do you want? Pounding the rock. So
that's a very good point. Well, that's what we got for free agents that signed, and now we're going to get into our second topic for today, which is free agents that haven't signed. A lot of them. I don't know if you guys seen on Twitter the free agency board, but there's just multiple guys that this year it's a crazy free agency. I'm going to start off with the first guy that I think is very talented, Chris Carson. Still hasn't signed with someone yet. And now with Aaron Jones signing with the Packers, I really hope Atlanta does the right thing and signs Chris Carson. You're not going to get Aaron Jones, so go with the second best guy in my opinion. I think it's a great fit. So Chris Carson's definitely the guy really up on my board, and I can't wait to see where he signs. We're going to go to Mike first. Where are the guys you're looking at in that board that you really want to see sign somewhere?
I'm curious as to Will Fuller and his demand. Like, is demand high on Will Fuller? Is it medium? Is it low? Is he going to be – he's not a number one, but he's also more explosive. And I mean, you think he could be a number one? I mean, when does he ever play 16 games?
That's true. Where do you think he'll have the biggest fantasy potential?
There's only one right answer, Mike. Say it.
Are there enough footballs for that?
Oh, I mean, we know that Hopkins and Fuller could both be fantasy relevant. We saw them when Fuller was healthy. I mean, I love it. I mean, I'm glad that's the guy I was going to talk about. That's the exact team that I want to see him go to. I mean, why not? More weapons for Kyler. I mean, Fuller. I mean, the thing about Fuller is he only needs that one or two plays a game. And then Hopkins a target monster. So I think they'd both be relevant. Maybe you lower Hopkins' ceiling slightly, but I mean not by much.
I would be interested in seeing? I would be, and I don't think it can happen. So this is probably dumb, but Los Angeles Rams, just Stafford back there loading up. That would be ridiculous.
That would be a stacked wide receiver corps.
But they don't have the ability to do that. But it would be cool. It's cool to think about.
And Cooper Kupp's value all the way down.
Well, their other guys aren't. I mean, I guess no one is the bomb threat that Fuller is at this point.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. It's a tough decision, but I agree with Sonny. Arizona is definitely the place I think he should go. Nate. Undraft, free agents right now. Where do you think, with the Eagles, you can shop for a cheap wide receiver right now? I heard the Bears want to get rid of Anthony Miller. I think that's a good option for you guys, I mean, who do you want? And where do you see, your top free agent guy? Where do you think he's going to go?
Oh, well, I'll be honest with you. I don't think we're going to do much. We have a GM that sleeps 24 hours a day, okay? He's really just a finance manager. That's all he can really do. I'm very frustrated, as you can tell. But see, the problem is because how bad that cap hit was, we are struggling to give as much cap into ourselves. We just lost Marquise Goodwin, and he didn't even play. He had a longer career than Frank Gore did on the Eagles. And he literally just signed and then left immediately. So relieving Marquise saved us $4.2 million in cap space. So we're about to get the cap hit. I mean, I don't know. I really can't say. I mean, Anthony Miller wouldn't be a bad idea at all. We have some young wide receivers that we are actually looking into. John Hightower, Quez Watkins. We have a few of them. Jalen Rieger. I mean, the list goes on with some hopeful names, but talking about Eagles and free agency just doesn't seem to mix well this year at all.
The process. It's the process in Philly all over again, man.
I'll just keep crying myself to sleep, telling myself to trust the process.
It's the process.
It's just the process. I mean, Anthony Miller. I think if he went, I think the Cardinals would be a better option for Anthony Miller than any other team, in my personal opinion. If you were to go somewhere,
want Fuller.
How about D-Hop?
Yeah, I was gonna say he's gonna want Fuller all day over Anthony.
Or Fuller. I mean, you can't go wrong with both. I mean, Will Fuller is obviously the best one you would want out of the two. But of course, if he's on the table, but for the Eagles, cap space.
Nate, you know what Anthony Miller can do for you? A guy who can catch the ball and be fantasy relevant on the Eagles, probably, and a cheap contract. I think that would work for you, but
until
Fuller
he signs that contract and he loses his hands, he's gonna lose his hands.
But the big guy on the board, the fantasy monster when it comes to wide receiver that people forget about is Kenny Galladay. Sonny, where do you think he's going? There's speculation Miami. Where do you think he's going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still thinking the Colts, just because, I mean, they have a lot of cap space. They have a lot of room to play with. They can offer him a big contract. They lost T.Y. Hilton. And I mean, again, a nice core, I mean, we talked about before Carson Wentz, like those big body guys, like Ertz and Alshon, Fulgham, all those guys. I think Galladay fits that mold. And you got a speedy threat coming back with Paris Campbell, so I think they'd all be perfect complements with each other. So, I mean, again, they can afford him. He fits their needs, and I mean, there are picks to win the division too. So, I say, just go to the Colts in a good offense with Frank Reich.
I would definitely rather have that option than Miami Dolphins, unless Tua makes a huge step as being a quarterback, especially a fantasy relevant quarterback. I wouldn't want Galladay going to Miami, so I really hope you're right. I think the Colts is a better fit. He'd probably get way more fantasy points, more production. Nate.
I think Galladay going to Miami isn't as bad as everyone thinks. I think it's just really because of the quarterback situation there.
Yeah,
we don't know what's going to go on with Tua. So again, the same situation can be for the Jets. I mean, we don't know how bad or good Corey Davis is going to do because we don't know the quarterback situation with the Jets. Even though Sam Darnold is a really good quarterback, we still don't know what's going to happen with them. So there's so many reasons why we think Kenny Galladay wouldn't be going on the. Well, there's really one certain dang reason why we believe that, but I don't think. I just personally don't think him going to Miami would be as bad as people would think. In my personal opinion, I think that really helps Tua in many aspects. But I guess we'll see.
We'll see, because he did have Devontae Parker and Preston Williams, which personally both I think are good fantasy wide receivers. So he's got to step up.
And Devontae Parker did struggle with an injury most of the season too.
He did. So he's going to have more weapons if Galladay comes. You just got to take a step up, and then I think Galladay, would execute as a good fantasy wide receiver. So I agree with that. Mike, Kenny Galladay, do you agree with Colts being probably the correct option?
Yeah, I think Sonny convinced me. I was trying to think, is there another place where he's gonna go? The pieces line up, because it's also a game of like, well, who's gonna afford him, and is this like Galladay will never be a hotter commodity than he is right now, and he just has to cash in right now. So who's gonna spend the most? Who needs him the most? It lines up.
Yeah, I mean, he's older than people think, too. He's already 27. I mean, he's a lot older than people think. So this might be his last payday.
Yeah, no, that's a very good fact on that. So, Kenny Galladay, hopefully the Colts, they have a lot of money for him. Miami might be also another good option. We got a lot of running backs, too, that still haven't signed. Just guys like Le'Veon Bell, Adrian Peterson, Damian Williams.
James White.
James White, a lot of interest from teams. James White, Mike Davis, another really good fantasy. Like, these are like Damian Williams and Mike Davis and James White, pretty good fantasy running backs. So when you look at it from a fantasy perspective, you want these guys to be going on the right teams. Mike Davis is personally, just from a Falcons perspective, is it a good idea for Mike Davis to go on the Falcons? Sonny, I am curious. I was thinking about that all day.
Yeah, I mean, I know they don't have much cap to play with. He'll be really affordable. I think he'll be better than any running back they have. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if he does sign with the Falcons, I do think he'll be fantasy relevant. You want to talk about Arthur Smith's offense we did with Derrick Henry. I mean, obviously he's not going to put up those numbers, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I'd be all aboard that. I think he could be a low end starting running back for fantasy.
Yeah. And are there any other unsigned running backs right now that you really think have the potential to be a good fantasy running back? Yeah, Mike.
So you guys know that I love Philip Lindsay, and he was tendered at the lowest amount, right?
Yeah, he
so
was.
So you can, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can offer him a contract, and the only thing that the other team, like, they don't get anything because he was undrafted. They could just have the ability to match. How does it work?
I actually don't know how tender works. I actually didn't want to look that up today. I do not know how that works.
It's usually you can tender someone at their original draft location, which you couldn't do for him because he wasn't a drafted player. So if it's the lowest one, then their compensation, they could match a contract, but they wouldn't. So I guess that they're banking that no one's going to pay whatever little base upgrade he got. I don't know, but I would love to see Philip Lindsay away from the Broncos and on to the Raiders.
That would be a very good option as a pass catching back.
I just found out what it meant. Tender, like what to do it for. So pretty much, in all simple terms, it says that the tender gives the original team the first right of refusal to match any offer made to the restricted free agent. If the original team declines to match the offer, the new team must send a draft pick as compensation. If the original team withdraws a tender, the restricted free agent becomes an unrestricted free agent.
But it depends on what kind of tender you do. You can do like the highest level tender or the lowest one. And if you do the lowest one and it's an undrafted player,
there's so many rules. So many rules in this game.
I believe there's a high tender. Robert Tonyan is involved with a tender too as well, which is pretty.
It depends on the contract, I believe, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I think it does.
Okay.
I know it's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
But Philip Lindsay is another good running back that's in a pickle right now. So it depends on the contract money. So Sonny, any other free agent running backs right now that have not signed? Who are you looking at? For a fantasy perspective of.
Yeah, I mean, so there were rumors that Leonard Fournette is getting interest in the Patriots, which I would not be interested in. But Seattle, I would be very interested in if he signed with the Seattle Seahawks.
That'd be dope.
Again, we heard Pete Carroll. They want to have that heavy run, heavy offense. Fournette finally looked like the guy that he was drafted to be. So, I mean, if he's in Seattle, I think he could be a borderline, top 20, top 15 running back that I'd be very interested in drafting.
Yeah, and he'll definitely get more money than, being on the Bucs, so that is a very good option. There's just so many running backs right now that still haven't signed. Mike, are there any other free agents that still haven't signed that you would like to talk about?
Well, I mean, one more thing on Leonard Fournette. He's another case where it's like he's going to go where the money is for sure.
Yeah.
Because he was cut, he got picked up, he did a friendly thing. His stock's pretty hot right now. He's just going where the money is. So I don't think whatever team ponies up, that's where he's going. Yeah, I mean, I think Curtis Samuel's like an interesting one. It's another thing of like, how is his demand? He was interestingly used last year, and probably the most intriguing of his career was last year. All the different things that he was doing. I don't know what the market is there though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Curtis Samuel believer, and again, coming from a biased Ohio State fan, but I think again, so personally, for my prediction, I had the Washington football team. I mean, again, he was with Ron Rivera. He was drafted by the Carolina Panthers. All they have is Kerry McLaurin, a receiver. So I think, two former Ohio State Buckeyes, and then him reuniting with Ron Rivera, I think would just be a perfect fit in Washington.
That'd be awesome.
As for you, Mike, actually, the guy we didn't talk about was Juju Smith-Schuster, and I think the Raiders, try and get into sweepstakes just because we know there was rumors in the offseason of him getting linked to the Raiders. They lost Nelson Aguilar. They don't have a wide receiver. The only guy they have is Darren Waller, and I think he complements, Derek Carr's. We know Derek Carr. He does have an arm, but we also need the tendency to check the ball down. So I think, he's an upgrade from Hunter Renfrow in the slot. So I would love that for Derek Carr and Juju.
But I don't know. They have Hunter Renfrow. They have a good slot receiver, and they have this bomb, a guy, I guess, in Henry Ruggs. But it was great having Aguilar because he was also another bomb guy. And their offense was awesome last year, and they scored a bunch of points. Just the defense was bad. But, I don't know. I don't know if Juju.
Like we talked about again, Juju isn't a one, but Darren Waller is their one. So I think again, he could be a second, third option. I'm not even saying just add Juju. Maybe they add in the draft. Maybe they take a shot. Maybe they get John Brown or something, another deep threat too. I think they need more weapons. I think Juju could have a role there.
John Brown would be an interesting thing, and then you're right too. Like Darren Waller, number one,
he's the one
receiver. Regardless, he's the number one receiver, and then by the way, he plays tight end. So that would be an interesting thing too. Coverage should always be going towards Darren Waller, and it would open up a lot for Juju. So that's an interesting point. That point would make me a little more happy about it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Juju, I can't wait to see what team he signs on. And one other guy I did want to talk about: is there any team where Kenyon Drake signs and you're drafting, you're like, yeah, I'll pick him up as a fantasy running back. That's my guy. If he signs on that team, I'm going to start with Nate first. Is there any team that Kenyon Drake would sign on that you're kind of high on?
I don't see him being a problem staying on the Cardinals on a small deal. If really no one starts, I haven't personally heard anything. I don't know if any Cardinals fans have of any, teams really going for Kenyon Drake. I just haven't. So I think his best option would probably be to stay on the Cardinals for the time being. Just because, again, I don't really see any teams as of right now, at least. And it might change next week. Who knows? Or tomorrow. We never know.
Personally, I think if he was on the Steelers.
Again, I just can't see him really.
If he was on the Steelers.
James Conner.
James Conner's probably going to be out. Yeah,
James Conner's unknown.
What about the Chargers?
That really takes value away from Eckler, though. Takes value away from him.
But, I don't know. But Eckler is not I don't think you want to be handing the ball or giving Eckler 300 touches a year. He's not a big guy. I think you need someone else capable to do those touches. And I guess they did pretty well when Eckler was out, handing it to random guys. So I guess they don't need it, but that would intrigue me a little.
I think personally it would have to be for me if it wasn't the Cardinals. The Chargers isn't a bad idea either, but I was thinking more Broncos too. Broncos could use at least a secondary running back for their situation.
I don't know. Personally, for me, I think again, if he's the lead running back and he gets touches, then he'll be relevant. So personally, I would say if he's in Arizona, I'd be interested. If he's on the Falcons, the Jets, Seattle, Steelers, the Bills. Teams that need a running back. Those are at the top of my head. I would be interested in all of those teams because I think if he signed, he would be the best running back from day one on that team. So
yeah, exactly. I was gonna say because if he's splitting reps, I'm not looking at him in fantasy.
Exactly.
And so teams like that, like the Jets, Falcons, Steelers, the guy's getting most of the reps, and then he becomes fantasy relevant. So I would have to agree with that. All right, that is all that I have. Unless any of you guys want to talk about any other undrafted free agents, it's kind of more of kind of sit and wait. We still got a lot of time left to go in the week for all these guys to sign, but I'm really excited for next week's episode. But thank you for listening. Listen to us on Facebook and YouTube. Also follow us on Inside the Hashes. Check out our Insta and Twitter accounts at Inside Hashes. Also check out our website where you can listen to Air It Out and RPO. And we will see you guys at next Tuesday at 7 p.m. where there'll be many more players signing to different teams, and we'll have more insight on how we think they're going to do in fantasy. So stay safe out there.
See you.
Bye.